We talked about International Engineering Alliance (IEA) previously. It specifically outlined the graduate attributes and the professional competency (GAPC) as recognized under different accords among the signatory countries, recognizing a substantial equivalence of the programs being accredited by those signatories. The IEA document version 4 here outlines the graduate attributes as well as the professional competence, which are meant for graduate engineers as well as the professional engineers. As far as the program for an institution of higher learning is concerned, we pay emphasis on the graduate attributes. Now, when it comes to the professional engineers assessment, the professional competence shall govern. The institutions in charge of this shall involve the institutions of higher learning, IHL, as well as the Engineering Accreditation Council in Malaysia. These are in the context of Malaysia. Different countries may have different organizations to do so, as long as being recognized by those organizations. The mutual recognitions will take effects. At the program level, the Engineering Accreditation Council shall perform the accreditations practice, ensuring the program offered by institutions of higher learnings in Malaysia meeting the standards. As for the recognitions of the professional engineers, it will be governed by the Board of Engineers Malaysia as well as the Institutions of Engineers Malaysia. Now, IEA here outlines the profiles and the components for the 11 graduate attributes as well as 13 professional competence. Both will have to incorporate the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We're going to discuss about the Sustainable Development Goals later. As for the graduate attributes, there are 9 knowledge and attitude profiles. There are 7 complex engineering problem solving. There are 5 complex engineering activities and 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The graduate attribute will define the program outcome of the program offered by the IHL here. Now, in order to achieve the program outcome, all this will have to be incorporated. Missing any item here will lead to non-attainment of the graduate attributes. It is the responsibility of the IHL and the Engineering Accreditation Council to ensure all these are well in place. This is what it means by the graduate attributes are ultimately being transformed into the program outcome. The knowledge and attitude profile will lead to the graduate attributes. The Sustainable Development Goal will also contribute to the graduate attributes. The complex engineering problem and the complex engineering activities shall also contribute to the graduate attributes. On top of this, you also see the relationship between those components. The knowledge and attitude profile is also governing the complex engineering problems. Same goes to the Sustainable Development Goals can also influence the knowledge and attitude profiles. Ultimately, when you need to design a program, you will have to make sure all these are being covered. Now, let us talk about the graduate attributes. It is basically the outcomes, which can be assessed individually. These outcomes are the indicative components for the graduate's potential to acquire competence to practice at an appropriate levels. What does it mean? graduate attributes are the outcomes. That means it is compatible under outcome-based educations. And this outcome is accessible, which can be assessed and measured. And the assessment can be done individually and explicitly. This fits the characteristic of outcome-based educations. Now, when we talk about this outcome, these are the desired component of the graduates. Why is it desired? Because it shows the potentials of the graduate to practice engineering with adequate competencies. It means what? If the graduate do not fulfill the outcome, most likely the graduates have difficulty in practicing engineering with good competency. Simply said, the graduate attributes are the attributes as expectable from the graduates of engineering, having the capacity to perform engineering practice. Lacking of any graduate attribute, the graduates are considered not qualified. These graduate attributes will be the exemplars as expected from the graduate from an accredited program. It outlines the characteristics of a competent engineer. Because it is clearly outlined, the graduate attributes can be used as a guide to the body for the accreditation practices. It will serve as the guide for the institutions of higher learning in developing the program up to the intended standard. It also provides the guides for the accreditation body to evaluate whether a program being offered by an IHL meeting the intended standard, which at the same time it also serves as the guide for the country seeking for signatory status. Now let us talk about the limitations of the graduate attributes. It is based on the principles of sustainable equivalence. What does it mean by sustainable equivalence? It means that the programs are not expected to have identical outcomes and content. Flexibility is still given to the program to incorporate their niche and uniqueness when it comes to the design of the programs. They are looking at the substantial equivalence. That means there will be a large portion of it having the equivalent standards. Now, it is not expectable that all the programs offered by all the signatory countries have the same outcomes and content. Their focus is on producing the graduate who could enter the employment and be fit to under a program of training and experiential learning leading to professional competence and registrations. That means the graduate attribute is a gateway. You need to pass through these graduate attributes so that you can enter the engineering industry. The program may not be identical, but it should have adequate quality and competency to be employed and to go through the training in the pursuit of professional competence. Second, the graduate attributes provide a point of reference for the body to describe the outcomes of substantially equivalent qualifications. That means if we are producing a program, the graduate attribute will be the ultimate reference. You can design accordingly. That means you don't have to literally follow words by words as outlined by the graduate attributes while developing your program outcomes. However, the bottom line here it will be you must provide nothing less. You can provide more, but nothing less. The safest way is to do the program outcome. If you don't want to create on your own, you can literally take the whole things from the graduate attributes. Digest every single graduate attribute, translate them, and to be incorporated within your curriculum design. pay more emphasis on how can you make the curriculum meeting all the graduate attributes. It is also stated that the graduate attributes does not constitute an international standard for accredited qualifications. They don't want to make it as compulsory to that level. Instead, they will declare that to provide a widely accepted common reference or benchmark for the body to describe the outcomes of substantially equivalent qualifications. When you see the statement here, they are positioning themselves as the reference to the accredited programs under the signatories countries. They call this as the widely accepted common references instead of the international standards that rigidly governs the accredited qualifications. In another word, certain degree of differences is acceptable provided that the intended graduate attributes are being fulfilled. Next, let us look at the common formats for the graduate attribute as given by IEA. You know that this IEA document is meant for Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and Dublin Accord. They should cover the graduates from different streams: engineer, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians. It is basically a framework having the ability to adopt and accommodate different types of engineering programs. There are still distinct differences among the engineering program in terms of the technical competency, nature of the professions, as well as the scope and responsibility of the professions. Therefore, the graduate attribute should have the ability to distinguish that. They come up with a common format where there is a common stem followed by the range information for each educational track. We have 3 educational tracks here: engineer, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians. Taking this as an example, this is the first graduate attribute. We have a common term which is applicable for all the educational tracks. For engineer, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians. The common term, it will be applied knowledge of mathematics, natural science, computing, and engineering fundamentals, and engineering specializations. And there will be something in follows. Now the following here, it will be the range informations of each educational tracks. The common terms are the common things among the 3 educational tracks. Now the range informations will differentiate them. For engineer graduates, it will be as specified in WK1 to WK4, respectively, to develop solutions to complex engineering problems. WK stands for Knowledge and Attribute Profiles, which is meant for Washington Accord. That means we are referring to engineering programs. SK and DK are meant for Sydney Accord and Dublin Accords in terms of their knowledge and attitude profiles. You will also see differences in terms of their scopes and expectations. Engineering graduates, we are talking about complex engineering problems. They are expecting engineer graduates to have the capacity to develop solutions to complex engineering problems. In terms of the thinking order based on the taxonomy, we know that we require very high levels of thinking orders. And then when it comes to the problems, we are talking about really complex engineering problems. Now, if you look at engineering technologies graduates, it is more towards the applications of engineering procedures, processes, systems, or methodologies. Now, when it comes to engineering technicians graduates, it will be more towards the practical aspects, the masteries of the skills, procedures, and the practices. You will have to read between the lines here in order to determine the levels of expectations from different educational tracks. Now let us talk about the interpretations of graduate attributes. We are referring to the contextual interpretations. We interpret the graduate attributes by the context. What are the components of the knowledge? What are the levels of thinking orders? What are the levels of depth and complexity? This shall give us a good idea what are the expectations from the graduates having the capacity to enter the engineering practicing industry and having the potentials to compete with the international communities. The graduate attributes are stated generically and are applicable for all engineering disciplines. That means if you are talking about an engineering program, it can be civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, and so on and so forth. That means these graduate attributes are generic. It is applicable for civil engineering, which at the same time also applicable for mechanical engineering. Now the only things that make it different, it will be the problems encountered by different disciplines of engineering. The fundamental knowledge and specializations are similar. The levels of thinking orders are similar. The depth and complexity of the problems are also similar, just that the problem will be in the civil engineering discipline or in the mechanical discipline. It is also stated that in interpreting the statement within a disciplinary context, individual statements may be amplified and given particular emphasis, but they must not alter in substance or individual elements in all. What does it mean? That means you are free to interpret these statements when it comes to different engineering disciplines. You can even amplify the content and particular, or you may also pay emphasis on certain aspects. These are allowed to be flexible, but you cannot alter the major things there, especially in terms of the levels and complexity, as well as the main scopes as defined by the graduate attributes. Now let us talk about the practices and applications of the graduate attributes. These attributes are defined as the knowledge profile, which the graduate must be able to perform once it is recognized. Now the requirements as outlined by the graduate attributes are being stated without reference to the design of program that would have achieved the requirements. That means the design of the graduate attributes is not based on any existing program. It will be purely based on the attribute as expectable from the graduate that would have performed well in the engineering industry. Because of this, you are free to design the program with different detail structures, learning pathway, and also mode of delivery. Flexibilities are given here. Another thing about these graduate attributes is that the evaluations of an individual program is the concern of the national accreditation systems. That means this IEA does not interfere with the accreditation practices among the signatory countries. They are recognizing by the countries. Now, how the countries manage the accreditation system? It will be purely the responsibility of the countries. Different countries may have different practices. As long as their output, which are the graduate, meeting the graduate attributes, this shouldn't be an issue to IEA. They lay trust to the national accreditation system by different signatory countries.